everyone, it's time for story time. And this week I'm reading Iggy Peck, Architect. When you have a house and so much land that you have to plan for, you need an architect. And the architect of the main Ford house and some of the other buildings was Albert Kahn. And he designed homes, buildings, and factories all over the Detroit area. And he was known to Edsel and Eleanor Ford, so they got to work with him to design the perfect home. And then, when it came to the land, they worked with a landscape architect, and his name was Jens Jensen. And all of them worked together to create this perfect place for them to raise their children. I thought it would be fun to talk a little bit about building and planning with Iggy Peck. So I'm going to read the story, and afterwards there'll be a video about how to do a fun building-inspired project. But let's read Iggy Peck, Architect. And this is by Andrea Beatty and illustrated by David Roberts. Here we go. Young Iggy Peck is an architect. He has been since he was 2, when he built a great tower in only 1 hour with nothing but diapers and glue. Good gracious, Ignatius, his mother exclaimed. That's the coolest thing I've ever seen. But her smile faded fast as a light wind blew past, and she realized those diapers weren't clean. Ignatius, my son, what on earth have you done? That's disgusting and nasty. It stinks. But Iggy was gone. He was out on the lawn using dirt clods to build a sphinx. When Iggy was 3, his parents could see his unusual passion would stay. He built churches and chapels from peaches and apples and temples from modeling clay. Now, have you ever used apples to build before? Maybe clay, but I haven't used apples before. At dinner one night, to his father's delight, Iggy got a bright gleam in his eye, and out on the porch built the St. Louis Arch from pancakes and coconut pie. I would personally rather eat the pancakes, but I think that's pretty creative. You see the big arch? Dear Egg had made it until 2nd grade when his teacher was Miss Lila Greer. On the first day she had this to say: "We do not talk of buildings in here. Gothic or Romanesque, I couldn't care less about buildings, ancient or new." She said in her lecture about architecture that it had no place in grade 2. She's throwing out all those books. That might seem severe, but she was sincere, for when she was no more than 7, she'd had a great fright at a dizzying height in a building so tall it scraped heaven. On an architect's tour of the 95th floor, young Lila got lost from the group. She was found 2 days later in a stuck elevator eating cheese with a French circus troupe. After that day, it's quite safe to say she thought all building lovers were nuts. As a teacher, she taught that above all one ought to avoid them. No ifs, ands, or buts. So that's her eating the cheese. As you might guess, it would cause Iggy stress to hear such terrible talk. But he didn't hear it. He sat in the rear while building a castle of chalk. So you see his castle? So he didn't even hear her say that. "You, Iggy Peck, your desk is a wreck. Tear down that castle now. You will not build in here. Is that perfectly clear? Do you need to see Principal Howe?" "No, ma'am," Iggy said. He lowered his head. His heart sank down to the floor. With no chance to build, his interest was killed. Now 2nd grade was a bore. After 12 long days that passed in a haze of reading, writing, and arithmetic, Miss Greer took the class to the Blue River Pass for a hike and an old-fashioned picnic. Now, picnics are fun. I don't know if this one's going to be fun, though. They crossed an old trestle in a small island nestled in the heart of a burbling stream, but they no sooner passed than the footbridge collapsed, and Miss Lila Greer started to scream. "We're trapped here, oh my! Oh, last kids goodbye!" Her eyeballs rolled back in her head. She dropped to the ground with a vague groaning sound, luckily fainted, not dead. So there is their bridge, and it's completely gone. The class was amazed. They stood quite a daze, uncertain of what they should do. But one bright young man was off hatching a plan, which started with Miss Lila's shoe. Soon each lad and lass there on Blue River Pass was working together as one. So we see Iggy has a plan. He's put it in the ground, just like an architect would. And when she came to, Miss Lila Greer knew that something quite brave had been done. She looked in the air and saw hanging there a structure with cables and braces, and on the far side, beaming with pride, were 17 smiling young faces. Boots, tree roots, and strings for roll-ups and things, some of which should not mention, were stretched ridge to ridge in a glorious bridge dangling from shoestring suspension. Pretty impressive bridge. It became clear to Miss Lila Greer as she crossed that bridge over the stream, there are worse things to do when you're in grade 2 than spend your time building a dream. Now every week at Blue River Creek Elementary in 2nd grade, all the school kids can hear, along with Miss Greer, how the world's greatest buildings were made. The weekly guest speaker in a t-shirt and sneakers talks of buildings from Rome to Quebec. Of course, he's the guy who builds towers from pie. That's the brilliant young man, Iggy Peck. Alright, so like I said at the beginning, be sure to check out our video for a building-inspired art project. And come back next week for another story and another art project. Bye, everyone!